Look, folks are coming on. So if you can, mute your microphone. I'd appreciate it. Um, that will work. So, all right. So good to see you all so far. We're gonna wait a few more minutes for some other folks to log on. But so far, can you all hear me? You can do a thumbs up or whatnot. I appreciate that. Thumbs up. Okay. Okay. Very good. Okay. Cool. Thank you. All righty. And cool. We got more folks coming in. More folks coming in. So I'm just waiting to make sure more folks gather. I have to say, of all my classes right now, and maybe it's because it's also a 9:30 class, instead of an 8 o'clock class. More people show up because I know even whether we were face to face or online, 8 o'clock classes are no joke. Trust me, I make it up and try to get everything together, to meet up with my folks at 8 and even the 9:30 is a tough one. But for folks that are coming on, all right, here's what is up. Hopefully, and mute your microphones if you can. Hopefully, if you saw the post, I posted there were two posts. One was on Sunday, and I think one was yesterday. One was the reading response number 10 posted yesterday. So by a show of thumbs, everybody see that reading response number 10? You got it? Yes? No? Okay, cool. So one person saw the reading response for number 10. So again, it is posted up on your Blackboard, so that's available. But I want to talk to you all about reading responses because in the midst of this upheaval with the coronavirus and such, and with our classes, and even with getting on Zoom and getting on Blackboard, I've made a couple of adjustments. And when I post the updated calendar for our class later today, you'll see some of those adjustments. One of the things that I made mention of, and I don't know if you've seen it yet, is I'm going to pull this up and we're going to go to the course description. And I want to make sure that you all see this. So the grading scale has changed because I removed one of our final projects, which was the anthology project. Because with the time that we have, there was no way, and of course, that project would take a lot of going on the internet and putting stuff together and such. And I know right now that's a tough one. So I removed that
Yo,
project.
God is good.
I was waiting for it.
Is my mic on?
Yes, it is. I was waiting for it. It's all good. I was waiting.
Oh my God.
No, it's all right. But I know I think it was you who were like, it's on my spirit that the project we removed, you and someone else was like, please. So I removed that project because it's just too much on both sides, my side and your side. So remove that one. So the grading scale has changed. So now what we have is a grading scale of if you an A is 225 points to 175 points, B 174 to 145, the C 144 to 114, and the D 113 to 84. F is 83 and below. So that said, you now kind of have a wider, if you look at it, you kind of have a wider net in which to fit into, probably reaching, a decent grade in this classroom. That said, you've got the acknowledgement quiz, the short analysis papers, all three of them equal out to 40 points. The long analysis paper, just to remind you, is basically an extended short paper number 3. And a lot of that is going to be covered next week, especially when I post the updated calendar and such. So we'll deal with that. We've done the unit exams. Well, unit exam number 1, the next unit exam will be coming up right towards the end of this semester, and then the weekly in-class reading responses. And I said before that getting those done would definitely keep your grade strong. That's like 50 strong points. That could be the difference between where your grade goes on a high end or a low end. Because of a lot of the technological stuff that's been going on, what I'm going to do for this weekend, the 17th through the 18th, starting I think Friday evening and into Saturday evening, I'm doing this thing which is basically called the reading response amnesty thing, whereas you can all of the reading responses will be open. So you now have a chance to go in and turn in your reading responses. So all of them will be open. If you've already turned yours in, that's great. But if you want that time to turn those in, you will have over the weekend to do so. So 24 hours. So that way you can push your grade up.
What day did you say for that one?
That will be this coming weekend. It'll start Friday, April 17th, and will go until 11 p.m. Saturday, April 18th. So you'll be able to have that 24 hours to go ahead and submit your the late reading responses. I won't even mark them late at this point, but I'm giving you a chance to go in and fill in those gaps. So that's what we're doing for this weekend. So yeah, definitely can please take a look at the form. Mute your microphones. There's a lot of back noise going on. But again, this is the new scale, grading scale with, as you can see in red, methodology project has been removed. There's a section called in-class assignment, and that generally is just going to equate to one thing we're going to do, not this week, but next week. We'll not be meeting for our Zoom classes, but next week will actually be where we will have our one-on-one conferences on our papers that are going to be short papers number 3 and stuff. So that during that week, you'll submit your essay proposal form for what short paper number 3 is going to be. And we'll have conversations about that. So that'll be good. That's what we'll be doing. So just keep that in mind. That's what's going on currently right now. And a couple of other things that will happen as well is, again, the conferences will start next week for short paper number 3, which will become short paper number 4. And also, I've been struggling just with my internet issues as far as getting all of your papers done for your short paper number 2s. You've been waiting on comments for that. Thank you for your patience. Those will finally be done today. So as soon as I get off of class with you all for Zoom today, I will most definitely give you those comments. So I said by Tuesday, by the end of Tuesday, I'm going to have those comments for you. And then you'll also have by Sunday, or if you need later, to have a turnaround for those comments for the revisions of short paper number 2. We can do that as well. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. So thumbs up if everyone's kind of gotten the information. Everybody's got it. Again, everybody heard me. Thumbs up on what's coming down the pipe. All right, cool. So yeah, again, you'll get to submit your reading responses again. You'll get to submit the reading responses again. You have a weekend to do that. You'll have your papers with comments for short paper number 2 back today, probably later today. We'll talk about short paper number 3 on Thursday, and we'll also schedule conference times throughout all of next week, so I can talk to everyone probably via Zoom, or if Zoom isn't working for you, we can talk by my Google Voice number. So that way, I can cover what everybody's doing with your papers and such, and we can be, for short paper number 3, we can be on point for that. All right, so that's where we are. Okay, everybody good so far? All right. So, and again, I will be sending you an updated calendar by today as well. Cool. So where we are now, before I forget, I've also been, it's taking a while, I've recorded most all of our Zoom classes, and I'm in the midst of uploading them to an unlisted YouTube playlist that is just for your class. You'll be able to hit the link and then go in and literally watch all the past classes that I've recorded. It takes a while because they're MP4s and my wireless, I don't have like FiOS, so that takes a little bit longer for me to upload those, but they'll be dated for each of the classes that I've had on Zoom. So in case you're trying to go and catch up on any of the Zoom courses, you should be able to do that, be able to log in and such. So that's where we are. So good morning, everybody. Good to see you. And here's what we got today. So we've talked about character. We've talked about plot. We've talked about perspective in fiction. And a lot of this stuff that we've been focusing on It's stuff that we've already seen before in our poetry sections, in our drama sections, because all in all this is based on storytelling. That's what it's all about. So maybe you've noticed in the stuff that you've read and stuff that we've looked over that a lot of these things, it's almost like I'm starting to repeat myself as far as these chapters. So a lot of the elements that we see in poetry and we see in drama keep showing up in even in fiction, because again, it's all storytelling. Everything moves from, oh, let me add someone else. Everything moves from oral tradition storytelling to eventually people being able to read and write. And then from that point on, it's all about the story, how it's being told. But your chapter, which is basically chapter 12, which is symbols, allegory, and myth, it's a really good chapter because this is about kind of digging deeper into what we're reading or even our stories. How many of y'all by a thumbs up, or if you want to, say hey or whatever, a thumbs up or type into the chat, how many of y'all have ever been told, oh yeah, you're kind of looking too deep into something. You're looking too deep into the meaning or something. You see something and you go, oh man, this means more than what's being said. Anybody ever had that issue? You've been told, oh God, you look too deep into stuff. Ain't nothing. James is like, yeah, all right. I'm gonna mention your name. I'm not even gonna say your name, but yes, got thumbs everywhere. Some people. So some of y'all like go beyond the surface when you see something. In that case, and really, this is what symbol, allegory, and myth is about. It's about going beyond just the literal and digging into like that figurative. We talked about maybe we didn't talk about this, but you have the literal meaning of something, and then you have the underlying meaning that may be cultural meaning, or some people call it figurative meaning. You have your what's that term called? You have your definition, standard definition of a word. Then you have your connotation, which is whatever a particular word someone uses as a historical or a symbolic meaning. Like writers, they're very careful about, most times, the good writers are careful about what they're going to write about. And they're really clear about what they're going to drop on the page. In some cases, it's to manipulate you as a reader, but most of the times they're like, I got to do something to keep these folks reading and following my page. So in this case, what I'm pulling up, if I can get a thumbs up, hopefully you can see chapter 12. I got to do something about my dang old finger. This finger just keeps showing up in the dang old thing. What am I going to do? Can you all see this page? Can I get a thumbs up? If you can see the page. Hopefully it's not too blurry. Uh-oh, okay, no one's giving me a thumbs up. All right, y'all can't see it? Oh, okay, I see 2 thumbs. Anybody else? Can you see the page yet? It might be uploading because for a lot of people on this Zoom, it takes a second. Anybody else? Let's give it a second. Anybody else?
No, I can't see it. I can only see your face.
You don't see my face? Oh, okay, that's because I took it off of the screen. Okay, what am I doing? All right, let's go back. Can you see the screen now? My bad. All right. Can we see the screen now? Thumbs up? Yeah. Okay, all right. So, just in a nutshell, okay, everybody see it, cool. Well, I feel like such an old man with this technology. All right, so here we go. Basically, if you want to talk about a symbol can be many things. It could be a person, it could be an action, it could be an object, it could be a place. So like the Olympics, if you think about the Olympics, that's an event. That could also be seen as a symbol. But overall, a symbol is basically all these things I mentioned: person, an object, a place, an event. There's the literal meaning of it. Like you see something, you go, oh yeah, that is a flag. Cool. But there's also a figurative meaning there's a deeper, a more complex meaning underneath that literal meaning. So you may look at a flag and be like, okay, that's a flag. But depending on what's on that flag, and depending on who's looking at that flag could mean several different things. There could be a range of meanings for it. So when we talk about symbols, one of the key things they should point out is the universal symbol or archetypal symbols. So basically, the universal or archetypal symbols are basically a symbol that people see it and they go, I know what that is. It's universal. So people know exactly what's going down. They kind of know what that is. So in a sense, and maybe you could type that in there. Like you could see a rose, and a rose could mean, if y'all want to type, into the section. I know I just brought my screen back up, but a rose is a symbol for what? Matter of fact, a red rose. What does a red rose symbolize? Like, what is its? Yeah, it's a rose. It's a flower, right? But what do red roses symbolize? Anybody know? A rose is a symbol for what? A red rose. You type it in. Just think about it. When was Valentine's Day? Gosh, the days are going by. We're already in April. All right, you mean like what it symbolizes generally? Yeah, a rose. Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm asking. Someone said love. Yeah, love. Anything else that you all think about as far as roses? Anything else? Red roses? Red rose. Anything else? Like, what's that? Is that show called The Bachelor? Is that song? It's always a passion. The Bachelor, isn't that the thing? Like, if you get a rose, that means you make it to the next round. That crazy show that's still on. I don't know. All right. A red. Oh, okay. Someone said or mourning. That's true. All right. So yeah, that's the symbol. We got that love, passion. But let me ask you this. I'm gonna throw a different wrench into it, which is what if you get yellow roses? So now, what is the symbolism of a yellow rose? How does that change because the color changes? What does that represent? So again, yeah, we got a rose as a flower, but what do yellow roses now represent? Things change when you change the color on them. So I'm just talking about this simple. It's a plant, but it's more than that. Anybody ever seen a yellow rose? Got any ideas? Yellow roses. Everybody's kind of quiet.
I mean, honestly, a yellow rose is rare to come across. So, I mean, I would just think that it was just different if somebody gave it to me, but I don't really know what it would symbolize.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. So yeah, you could say rarity. You could be like yellow roses. All right. Somebody put happiness. So thank you, Edwin. But a yellow rose can also mean friendship. So in some cases, people hand out roses, and so you have that. Let me flip it this way. White roses. What do white roses represent? Anybody seen those white roses? Again, remember we're talking about symbolism. Okay, someone put purity.
Pure,
Pure. Okay.
innocent.
Innocent. All right, you got that. Anybody else? White roses. Man, okay. Well, one of the things they've heard is also white roses can also represent death or passing. Some white roses are handed out at funerals. And then another one would be, what if you got a black rose? What does a black rose represent? And even in the turn of my voice, like black rose, like even the viewings of what people view as color and symbols, interesting. Like they can also be definitely cultural. But in this case, that's just one of the things I was talking about when we're talking about these various different types of symbols, how symbols are important and how they definitely kind of change the game of storytelling because a symbol could be many things to many people. But if anything, you should know a universal symbol is something that everyone looks at and gets the same type of understanding. Like a skull and crossbones on a flag, you be like, oh, pirates, yar, all that type of stuff. But if you see skull and crossbones on like a bottle of something, generally that would mean the universal message of poison. Do not drink that, it's dangerous. Um, Conventional symbols are also likely to suggest the same things to most people. So yeah, a rose suggests love, skull and crossbones could suggest poison. Um, Sorry about the quality of some of these things. So I'm going to pull up another screen that can kind of help you out when we talk about conventional symbols. So you've got flags that could represent patriotism or the love of country. But as we also said with symbols used in works of literature can function much in the same way as your general conventional symbols are. So remember I said a symbol isn't just a person. It could be an object, it could be an event, it could even be a season. So spring, if someone's using spring in a story, that could represent rebirth and promise. Autumn or fall, declining years and power. Summer, youth and beauty. So because a writer expects a dark force to evoke fear or a rainbow to communicate hope, he or she could be quite confident in using such images to convey a particular idea or mood. Now, here's the thing. Many symbols, however, suggest different things to different people, and different cultures may react differently to the same symbols. So in the United States, for example, an owl suggests wisdom. In India, it suggests the opposite. I have a former coworker of mine who is Korean, and this may not even do with symbolism, but I like to whistle. Just sitting on a song comes to mind, I'll whistle. I do know she said in her culture, whistling at night was like not a good thing. I was like, oh wow, okay, I didn't realize that. But I would ask among you all, are there any things, we all come from different cultures. Are there any symbols that you noticed in one place that differs from your understanding of in that case? I know, in symbolism, things can represent so many different things. So for me, a symbol is like a broom. For me, being that my family comes from the South, at least from the trend, the traditions of enslaved African Americans, the representation of marriage. I have some friends who've been married, and they did the process of the broom out of in the South where the enslaved Africans couldn't necessarily get married in churches and stuff, and they would have small ceremonies. And so instead of exchanging rings and all that other stuff, they would lay a broom on the floor and the couple would step across or jump across, and that represented stepping into the threshold of marriage. And then later that broom was hung up onto a mantle over in a special spot in the home. So I've been at some weddings, primarily African American weddings, where the jumping of the broom still represented marriage. And if I went to my friends' houses, you could see the broom that they jumped over up on the wall. So the broom to them meant something more than just let me sweep up. But anybody else? Any types of symbols that mean something specific to your culture? It could be a good symbol. It could even be like a bad symbol, like, oh no, we don't use that. That means this. Versus other people like, oh, I thought it meant this. Anybody? Any type of symbol where you found out that what you thought the symbol meant something to somebody else that was totally different. Anybody? Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna move on. All right. So that said, we were talking about symbols and symbolism and what that means and such. And so all you need to know again is that especially when we talk about symbols, key symbols that I think are very, very important. Sorry, I'm gonna bring the screen down again. So I'm gonna offer up an archetypal symbol. So let's say in literature, an old man shows up. Old man in literature or in stories. So what does the old man represent in stories? You think about fairy tales, think about films. What necessarily happens when the old man shows up, when there's an old man in like a fairy tale or a story? What does the old man usually symbolize? You can type it in the chat if you want, or if you want to come on the mic and be like, yo, this is what the old man symbolizes. Uh-oh, got somebody waiting. What does the old man symbolize? Okay, James said wisdom and guidance. All right, true. The old man in literature, that's how he rolls. Any old men or old people, old men in if you could think about it, think about characters that are old men that represent wisdom and guidance in film or even in stories. Okay, Mr. Miyagi. See, no one mentioned that. You forget about Mr. Miyagi. All right, yeah, from the Karate Kid. All right, anybody else? Old people? Old man that shows up in the story that represents wisdom? Anyone else? More experience? Yeah, definitely. All right, I'm gonna type in two folks. You got I'm gonna put in Dumbledore on that bad boy. He's not an old man, he's an old alien. I'm gonna say Yoda. Professor Xavier from the X-Men. I mean, he's kind of old, by Professor Xavier. Yeah, it's always about the old wisdom. So that's what we kind of talk about. So I would also add, let's say a mother shows up in literature. What does mother symbolism? I can't spell. Symbolism. Okay, someone says support. Yeah, mother represents support. Any other mother characters that you can think of? Care.
Like
Okay.
mother symbolize like nurture.
Oh, definitely, definitely nurturing. Uh-huh. We got that. Um, someone said, nurturing. Professor McGonagall. Yeah, yeah, kind of like an old wise woman, but kind of like a mother. Because remember, Harry Potter didn't have a mother, so if you think about it, McGonagall was kind of like looking after her, not so much. Or maybe even Mrs. Weasley, if you think about that. She kind of played as like a mother to Harry Potter. I always found it interesting that the mother, Weasley, would always go off on her kids, like she'd scream on all her kids, and then she would look at Harry and be like, baby, are you okay? Oh, you're good. And then she would continue screaming on her children, which was interesting. But if you also look at the symbolism of mothers, one group, and if you look at children's stories and stuff, like or even Disney, there used to be an issue with moms as far as symbols. Like they were almost symbols of absence or symbols of sadness. So like you could look at Cinderella, her mother died, and she had to deal with stepmothers and stepsisters. You could look at Hansel and Gretel, their mother died. The stepmother shows up, she's mean and evil, and all sorts of stuff. The queen from Snow White. All these like, wow, these evil older women. It's like, yo, what's that about? But at the same time, if you look at Disney, you think at absence also. You look at how Disney used to take mothers out. Um, Bambi, Bambi's mother gets taken out by the hunter. Oh my gosh, Finding Nemo. No spoilers there, but yeah, it's just not good. Dumbo, they locked Dumbo's mama up. I mean, this is again all these stories in which symbolism come out of all these different things. If you see the Grim Reaper in a story, what does that represent? Probably the same thing as the skull and crossbones. It's like, oh, it's a rat, and all that type of thing. So that's what we're talking about when we're dealing with symbolism. And the key thing you need to know about symbolism in literature is this. Most of the times, again, a symbol may have more than one meaning, like we said. It may have the literal meaning, you go, oh, that's a clock. But if the clock starts to show up multiple times in a story, like someone checks their watch, a clock is up on a wall, you hear the ring of like a far away, one of those like Big Ben clocks. You start to see these things show up. You're like, hold up, what is this writer trying to tell me by all this repetition? These things start to happen. And so that's the thing. While you read, you're kind of like a detective. Yeah, you can enjoy the story, but especially if you're reading a series of works by someone who you enjoy, you start to notice through their writing, their symbols and stuff. So yeah, consider the past work of someone that you've read and you've read a lot of their stuff and you're familiar with it. You start to notice the little symbols that they drop and such. And so again, universal and conventional symbols can be used as literary symbols that take on a deeper meaning in literary work, especially in fiction. So in fiction, when it comes to symbolism, you just kind of got to be like a crime scene investigator. You kind of have to kind of be like, wait, there's something more that's going on here. This doesn't just show up. So just as what I've said, for instance, a watch or a clock denotes time as a conventional symbol. It suggests the passing of time. But if it were a literary symbol in a particular work, it might also convey anything about a character's inability to capture the past, the idea of time running out. So you have a character that's always looking at their watch. For any of y'all who ever, can I show a show of thumbs? How many of y'all have seen or read Alice in Wonderland? Alice in Wonderland, little weird girl fall down the hole, chasing the white rabbit. Okay, okay, everybody. Okay, most of the time. Either you see the Disney animated version or the one with Johnny Depp with the red wig looking weird. But the key thing is the symbolism of time is a big deal. Because Alice, she falls down, the little hole. Remember, the white rabbit is the one that she's chasing. He has that little watch. He's like, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. And all through this story, this weird story, you have these representations of time or the bending of time, or what does it mean to grow up, and different things like that. And I'm not even going to talk about knowing what I know about the writer who wrote Alice in Wonderland. He was kind of weird himself, but he also dealt with time. But anyway, when it comes to symbols that show up in stories, just some of the questions to consider. Um, how often does the object keep appearing in the story? Does it change when it appears? Does it appear at key elements in the story? Which is really what this chapter is about, recognizing symbols. So I'm going up here, sorry, I had to move the screen. But basically, when is it and what is it a symbol with a meaning beyond its literal significance? So that's the thing. You got to keep your eyes peeled for certain things. So yeah, you got the watch that shows up in a critical moment, or the watch keeps appearing again and again in the story at key moments. That could be a representation of symbolism. Or if the story's opening or closing paragraph focuses on the timepiece, or if the story is literally called the watch. Like if that happens, then you kind of can say like, all right, there's gonna be some symbolism here. So the watch most likely has symbolic significance. There's so many things. If the moon keeps showing up in a story, that may represent something else. Symbols basically expand the possible meanings of a story, thereby heightening interest and actively involving readers in the text. That's one of the ways the writers keep you involved. They're like, all right, you know what? I think I'm gonna have this car that keeps showing up. And every time this car shows up in the story, something wild happens. So I want the readers of the story to kind of start to look for this car and realize that when that car shows up, something's going down. So that's generally what we're dealing with. You're recognizing symbols in stories. And so even with the stories that you're going to read in this particular chapter, which are
was not equal to.
Oh, go ahead. 1 second. What'd you say?
And then I press calculate.
Okay, I'm missing something. Okay. All right. So anyway, the two stories that you're going to read for chapter 12, and that's the lottery and everyday use. And matter of fact, I don't even want to do any spoilers. Like they talk about the lottery in this chapter because they bring up the fact that there is some major symbolism. So like literally in the lottery, for example, the mysterious black box has symbolic significance. It is mentioned prominently and repeatedly. So that kind of lets you know the story, like, oh, this thing, something's up. And it plays a pivotal role in the story's action. Of course, the black box is important on a purely literal level, and you'll find out what that is in the story. It functions as a key component of the lottery, but the box has other associations as well, and it is these associations that suggest what its symbolic significance might be. The black wooden box is a very old relic of the past lotteries. The narrator observes that it represents tradition. It's also closed and closely guarded, suggesting mystery and uncertainty. So, if anything, what I want to tell you is when you're thinking about symbols and such, one thing you should know is this: if you think there's meaning in a symbol, there is no wrong way to talk about the way an object is symbolic. Like the only thing is you have to do is be able to prove it. So if you say like, oh man, there's a pen that keeps showing up, like there's a pen that keeps showing up in the story, and I think it symbolizes. You could think of whatever you need, but you just would have to be able to prove it in your paper. Like the pen shows up in the pocket of a character and he signs a check. Then a pen shows up when this woman has to sign away her house. And then another one is, oh, then the pen shows up when a person has to, I don't know, sign somebody in. So you can talk about the significance of this one pen that's used throughout a story. So yeah, as long as you can explain the symbolism behind the multiple meanings behind a particular object or person or such, you're good to go. So there aren't really any wrong answers with symbolism, only if you can't explain it. If you're like, yeah, that rock is a symbol because it's a rock. That's not going to work. You got to go deeper and provide some additional meanings. So maybe it's, the rock represents, this rock keeps showing up, so the rock represents steadfastness and steadiness, or the rock represents dependability. So those are the kind of things that we're generally looking for when we're in our chapters. So beyond symbols, though, and we got to talk about this. There's the allegory. And an allegory is basically a story that has a message or a moral principle by making it into a narrative in which the characters personify the ideas, the concepts, qualities, and other abstractions. In other words, things that are allegories, Bible stories, stories in the Bible are allegories because you have characters or figures in the Bible that represent concepts or ideas. Like, and usually you're not going to have a whole bunch of symbolism within a lot of allegorical stories because really these characters represent the embodiment of what's going to eventually become a story that provides you a moral. Fables are also allegorical stories. So in other words, you would see these concepts played out between the actions of the characters that represent these concepts. So you may have one person who represents good and one person who represents evil. And so you're going to see those two interact in the story, and there's going to be a lesson or a moral that comes out of that story between the interactions of these characters. So you may have a person who is greedy, and then you have a person who is humble and isn't very rich. And then there's a story that has to be told about maybe how the greedy man ends up dying or something terrible happens to him because of his greed versus the humble person who isn't greedy, who ends up having a decent life. So in that sense, an allegory is a story with two parallel side by side and consistent levels of meaning. One literal meaning and one figurative meaning. And that figurative meaning is the moral, the political lesson, the main story's concern. And so, yeah, you might have a few things you might have just a lesson in an allegory, but you're not going to have a whole bunch of symbols because these folks are really just trying to tell you about what's going on. And so an allegorical figure, character, object, place, or event in the allegory only has one meaning versus general symbols and stories. So let me bring up the page again real quick. So there we go. Whereas a symbol has multiple associations, as well as literal meaning, an allegorical figure, a character, object, place, or event in the allegory just has one meaning within the allegorical framework, basically the allegorical story structure. So that's the set of ideas that conveys the allegory's message. So that's what we're looking at. Again, the purpose of the allegory is to communicate a particular lesson. Readers are not encouraged to dig too deep into it about the allegory's possible meanings. The meaning's just gonna be there. So that's what we're talking about. So can anybody think of any stories that represent an allegory? I mean, there's all these stories where we're talking about good versus evil, where there's a lesson or a political point that's being made. And there are a bunch of short stories in your text that talk about that. But the two stories that you're going to be reading in this chapter, once again, the lottery and everyday use are kind of allegories because they're going to kind of give you a moral. So let's see. Your characters, like I said, they represent certain things. They may represent beauty, they may represent evil. But what helps you as a reader to recognize an allegorical figure is if you understand what the writer is up to, like you're like, oh, okay, that character is acting like this because the writer is trying to make us understand, what happens when people are vain. So you have that type of thing. And so, which means, if you know what the writer's doing, you start to recognize when they're trying to throw a lesson at you. It's like, oh, you trying to school me right now? Oh, okay, I see what's going on. And so, one type of allegory that everybody knows is the Beast Fable. Type that in. And the Beast Fable, basically a story that's being told. There's like a lesson that's being told, but animals are being used. So think back to Disney pretty much all the stuff that they do. A lot of their stories are allegories. Like they have animals that are talking and taking part in events or moments, or they're dealing with objects in which there's a lesson. So if you think about Aesop's fables, Aesop was good for that. Like the crow and the fox. You got the city mouse and the country mouse. There's a story like called The Belling of the Cat. All these stories are talking animals in which they're involved in particular things in which they're trying to give you a moral. So yeah, the beast fables are usually there to make fun of society or to point out certain things. And most of the times people use beast fables because they were like, nobody wants to sit and be lectured by somebody. But you throw a talking dog and a hamster in a story, all of a sudden, people are like, oh my God, look, it's a talking hamster and a talking dog. This is kind of interesting. I want to see what happens. And so, again, one type of allegory is a beast fable, a short tale usually including a moral in which animals assume human characteristics. Aesop's fables are the best known examples of beast fables. Then there's like the story of like, I think it's like, and it could be various. It could be the man and the snake. It could be the monkey and the scorpion, or the turtle and the scorpion, or the fish and the scorpion, where there's a scorpion. And everyone knows the scorpion is mean. They know the scorpion, it stings people. The scorpion is on the other side of this river. And literally, the scorpion talks to the fish like, hey, fish, help me out. I need to get to the other side of the river to hang with my family. Can you help me out? And, fish is like, bro, you're a scorpion. You sting people. Nah, I'm not doing it. No, I already know what you're about. Scorpion's like, come on, man. Hey, it's me. Come on. I know I'm a scorpion. You don't have to judge a book by its cover. Look, I can't swim. I gotta get over to my family. Please help me out. Come on, man. Please, just come on. Animal to animal. Let's do this. And so the fish is like, all right, come on. So he puts the scorpion on his back, swims the scorpion across the water, and when he gets to like the shore, what's the scorpion do? Scorpion stings him. And the fish is laying there paralyzed, like, I can't believe this. I trusted you. I can't believe you did that. And the scorpion is like, dude, I'm a scorpion. That is what I do. You're a fool. So the moral of the story is, in some cases, which is sometimes when folks tell you who they are, believe them, even though the scorpion didn't say, oh, I ain't gonna do nothing to you. The scorpion was just like, hey, come on, help me out. But the scorpion never said it wasn't a scorpion, and the fish knew what it could do. So that's what we're talking about. Two animals that are talking. You have all these other stories that come in, how the tiger got his stripes, which ties into another type of story that we move into that's a part of the allegory system. And that is, let me scroll up, some of y'all might already know it, that is the myth. And the myth is different. Basically, it's throughout history, human beings have been makers of myths, especially in the case when they're trying to explain a concept or a culture or something as far as religion to other people. So a myth is a story that is central to a culture. It embodies the values on which a culture or society is built. Thus, myths are not synonymous with falsehoods or fairy tales. Rather, they are stories that contain ideas that inform a culture and that give a culture meaning. In this sense, then both an ancient epic and a contemporary religious text can be considered as myths. Even if, regardless of where you are in faith, we're talking in a literary concept. People will sometimes say, oh, like folks that believed, at one point in Greek gods and stuff, they were like, that's my religion, that's what I believe in. But we still consider to call those stories myths. So even if you got any of y'all out there who like mythology, like myths from different cultures, can I get a thumbs up? You got any myth people in there? Like Greek myths, Roman myths, the African folk tales, Asian myths, all these different types of cosmology. And even in a lot of these like spiritual texts and myths, you see these fantastic stories that talk about like the creation of the universe. I mean, the Greeks talk about it. Almost all cultures talk about like have stories where they're like, this is how we came to be. These are the gods, and these are how the gods did this. They even mention in the text in our book, they talk about the Bible and how they have creation stories. And so one of the most prevalent myths is the creation myth, where they talk about almost every culture has an explanation of how the earth, the sun, and the stars, and not to mention people came into being. And so yeah, they talk about how the Greeks talk about how the gods come about. In Western culture, the most recognizable creation myth appears in Genesis, the first book of the Old Testament, so they talk about like how the world was created, how God created human beings and such, and all these different things. There's even a story that were part of the oral tradition of Judaism and do not appear in Genesis. I don't know if any of y'all have heard the story of Lilith. Lilith apparently was, at least in that tradition, was the first woman created by God. So God created Adam and he created Lilith separately instead of the whole rib thing. So they were both created independently instead of like the woman Eve being created from Adam's rib. So what ends up happening is Lilith, because she's created, on her, by God separately, she refuses to be subservient to Adam. She's like, nah, bro, I can't really, you want me to obey you? Nah, sorry, God created us both. And so in the end, she leaves Eden and eventually to be replaced by Eve. And so the Talmudic tradition holds that she being Lilith, mates with demons and gives birth to a legion of demonic offspring who inhabit the dark places of the earth. So it's like, wow, okay. But the influence of mythology on literature is profound, and our contemporary understanding of narrative fiction owes a great deal to mythology. And it really does, because you still have all these stories that talk about how characters began. Some people create their own universes. If you've read Lord of the Rings, J.R. Tolkien, he created a whole mythology. He's like, all right, I'm gonna create this whole land with gods and all this other stuff. Even the dude C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, did a similar thing, creating universes. It becomes this world building. Science fiction writers do it now. If any of you all are down to doing gaming, oh man, all those long RPG games, like all of those stem out of mythology. People create monsters and creatures and lands and different languages and stuff. All of that is tied into the mythology thing. So that's one thing that we can think about, whether we're talking about faith and religion or people just writing a really, really good story. Myth is amazing. And myths usually are interesting. Some myths are humorous. Some myths, depending on where you're from, you may hear the same story, but each culture tells the story a little bit differently. I've heard the same story about how God creates man and how almost like each race that has told the story as if their race was the one that was the good one, which is God was like a baker and God created people out of clay. And in the story, depending on who tells it, whoever was created just right and left in the oven long enough or whatnot, or baked long enough and was perfect, was like the perfect human being. And then the rest of human beings that were either in the oven too long or too short, they were the other people. So, it's kind of like, whoever kind of has the power of the narrative gets to tell the story, even to the case of making other people kind of look bad. But yeah, again, all this is to say, when you're dealing with symbols, remember, symbols have more than one meaning, most definitely. So you got to look for repetition and you got to look for things that are significant. And there's no wrong way to point out symbolism. You just have to be able to point it out and explain it and show, the meaning below the literal meaning of something. So yeah, allegories, we just talked about that. Stories that have lessons and morals in them. And in that sense, the characters aren't going to spend so much time on symbolism. But characters can still represent amazing symbols themselves. So if we go back to symbolism, whether it's an old man, whether it's an old woman, whether it's a young child, and what those things represent, start to see those a little bit everywhere. So I'm gonna pull up one other little thing that deals with symbolism. And let me find it. Do this right. Oh, okay. Let me just share computer sound, optimize screen for viewing. All right, we're gonna see if this actually works. So here I go trying to do this stuff again. Where is it? All right. So hopefully I can share the screen and you can both see it and hear it. All right. Here we go. So this is called Symbolism in Literature. It's from a YouTube page. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. Hope you can hear it. If not, it'll be recorded. And when I post the recordings of this class and past classes within this week, you should be able to go back and look over everything. So here we go.
What we do here is go back.
All right, that was cute. All right, so yeah, just some simple things that represent when we talk about symbolism. And lastly, where is that? As always, I'm trying to track stuff down. So convention symbolism in literature can be tied to so many different things. It doesn't just have to be, like we said, it could be a person, it could be objects. So clothing can represent symbolism. Animals can represent symbols. Weather it represents symbolism. Nature, like we talked about. When I think of clothing, especially cape, withdrawal into oneself or into God. Cloak, human trickery. Bringing up Harry Potter again, he's got the invisibility cloak. If you really want to talk about symbolism, I mean, on the real, good gracious, we could just talk about comics. We talk about Marvel, superheroes and stuff, especially what they wear. Like symbolism is very, very important in graphic novels and comics because we literally are dealing with the visual aspect of what we watch, what we read and watch. So Batman, clearly, if we think about Batman, what is the symbolism of a bat? You know, with the wings. I ain't talking about a bat, but if you want to type that in to chime in, symbolism of a bat. What does a bat represent? Even if you think about Bruce Wayne, why does Bruce Wayne choose a bat as the creature that he wants to represent as he becomes a vigilante superhero multi-billionaire? Why do you think the bat, what does the bat represent as far as symbolism? Anybody? Little bat? Hope folks are awake. Yeah. All right. Okay, he's afraid of bats, so it represents his fear. True, true. All right, there we go. Plus, I don't know about too many people who want bats as cuddly pets and things like that. Like, oh, bats, so lovely. Like, I swear, if I found a bat flying around in my place, the key thing I wouldn't be is, oh, hooray, this is wonderful. But that's what we're talking about. So the bat represents fear for him, but the bat also represents a type of fearsome creature to others. And he wears that bat symbol. I mean, he little bat ears, all that type of stuff. Spider-Man, pretty obvious. He literally wears the spider on the front of his chest. And if we think about what a spider is, the symbolism of a spider, they spin webs, but they're also very resourceful. They can climb up walls. They can do all sorts of other stuff. I mean, yeah. Think about those symbols that show up. Thor. And especially Thor comes from Norse mythology. So he already has his symbolism going for him. He has the wings on the side of his head. He's got that hammer. There's the whole deal about how even the days of the week, in some cases, people say the days of the week are named after Norse gods. So when they talk about Wednesday, they say the play on words is Odin's Day. You say Odin's Day enough, it sounds like Wednesday. And Thursday sounds like Thor's Day. So yeah, I mean, but then again, my degree is in creative writing and stuff, and I also took a class on symbolism and all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's really one of the things that I had to study is this really great book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called The Secret Language of Symbols. And so, yeah, literally, it talks about symbol systems. So trust me, I'm all into that. Like literally, thunder and lightning have representation. So there's Thor with no turtle right there. All these different things like fire has symbolism. We talk about Thor and God of thunder. We talk about Zeus and his lightning bolts. I'm saying, even symbolism. What y'all know about Nike? Do you know who Nike is? Nike's not just a brand. Anybody know who Nike is? Where Nike comes from? I'm gonna give y'all a second if y'all want to try to Google it real quick. Nike in Greek literature. Anybody know? Anybody know? All right. Uh-oh, I think somebody's kicking in. Yep, there it is. Greek goddess of victory. Yeah, Nike is literally a goddess. It's the goddess of victory. So and she generally rocks wings. And so if you look at the Nike swoosh are literally wings. And so yeah, you got all these tie-ins if you think about that. So yeah, Nike is the goddess of victory. So people who are rocking those, whatever you rock, whether you're rocking, and I'm not even gonna play myself because I'm not a speaker here, so I can't even name any of the shoes and stuff. But the Nike swoosh is something that's very representative of stuff. So just keep that in mind. Like there's symbols that are generally everywhere. And so that's the key thing is as you read, stuff starts to show up and you kind of notice it a little bit more. You're like, hold up, they've said that before. What does that mean? So keep that in mind. So we come to the end of the chapter right now. And so chapter 12. We still have one more chapter to go in which we'll be dealing with style and tone. And that's probably what we'll talk about on Thursday. But in between now, my goal again for today is to get you all the comments for your short paper number 2s. I think I've done it, but the comments that have been sent for your back for short paper number 1s, your second drafts, I should send those in. If not, I do have a lot of work to do today. So please, again, look out for the updated calendar, which will drop today. Please look out for a notice or announcement letting you know that from Friday, April 17th to Saturday, April 18th, there's going to be called Reading Response Amnesty Day, where you'll be able to go back in and submit any reading responses that you missed to raise your grade. So I'll give a note about that. And again, because of my technology and my limited wireless, I'm still uploading courses on Zoom. Some stuff you've seen. So definitely take a look at that. You'll see a note, post in a particular folder in your course content section, and it'll literally say like Zoom recorded classes. And there'll be a link to an unlisted YouTube playlist specifically for your class with its section, and it'll give you all the recorded classes so far from this one to the past. So it's going to take me a few hours, but eventually they will all be there. So as of now, again, I am available via email. Sorry it's gonna take me to get back to you all because I'm answering all sorts of other emails and such. But yeah, we're gonna make it through this semester and definitely be prepared for the new calendar that's coming. And again, next week we will not so much hold classes, but that week will be for conferences for short paper number 3, which will eventually become your short paper number 4. So we'll talk about ideas and such. So we'll start on all of that on Thursday. So without further ado, thank y'all very much for tuning in, and I will be in touch with information throughout this by the end of the day. So thanks so much. All right, be safe.